Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Oklahoma City Employee Retirement System meeting for July 14th. This morning, our chairman and vice chairman are both absent, so the first order of business will be to elect a chairman pro tem. Anyone like to make a motion?
I nominate Randy Thurman.
Second.
Trustee Randy Thurman.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Randy, you can. Congratulations.
All right. Good morning, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. And the first item of business is swearing ceremony for Jamie O'Leary. Francis. They pull blood, too. Oh, cool.
Yeah. Okay. Place your right hand on the Bible and raise your left hand and repeat after me. I, Jamie O'Leary,
I, Jamie O'Leary,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma,
and the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma,
and that I will not knowingly receive,
and I will not knowingly receive,
directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
any money or other valuable thing
any money or other valuable thing
for the performance or non-performance
for the performance or non-performance
of any act or duty
of any act or duty
pertaining to my office
pertaining to my office
other than the compensation allowed by law.
other than the compensation allowed by law.
I further swear
I further swear
that I will faithfully discharge my duty
that I will faithfully discharge my duties
as a trustee
as a trustee
of the Oklahoma City Employee Retirement System.
of the Oklahoma City Employee Retirement System.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for the opportunity. Thank you. I'm very, very honored to have this opportunity, and I'm going to be fully engaged and do my very best, and I hope to learn something too. Thank you very much.
And right up front, we have paperwork for you. So. And item 3, approval of the minutes of the meeting of June 9th, 2016. Motion has been made and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Item number 4, receive the report of judgments, the annual actuarial evaluation, and the Lehman bankruptcy settlement proceeds. Do we want to take these all or separately? Do them all? Make the motion. And do we have a second? Second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Item number 5, presentation by Louise.
Lights and everything. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. Well, I'm very pleased to be here this morning and to have this opportunity to talk about the results of our work, specifically the results of the December 31st, 2015 actuarial evaluation of the retirement system. As you may know, an actuarial evaluation involves an assessment or an evaluation of retirement system liabilities and the determination of a contribution that is sufficient to fund those liabilities in an orderly manner over the working lifetimes of Oklahoma City employees who are covered by this system. In addition, we also prepare information related to the funding status of the retirement system, which is an indicator of the financial health of the system.
Yeah, the problem, I'll have to go see if there's anyone in the room. They didn't turn it on.
We can turn pages.
Oh, okay. Everyone does have a copy of the report. Wonderful. I wasn't sure.
It's on our screen up here, too.
Yeah, we do have it on the screen that we can look at.
Oh, okay. Great. Well, on page A-2 of your report, you'll see a disclosure of the actuarially determined contribution rates. So even though we do our calculations as of December 31st, 2015, they establish the contributions for the city's 17-18 budget year. Some would call it fiscal 18. The contributions are expressed as percents of member payroll. This is fairly common among public plans like yours that are open to new city employees. And the recommendation is a contribution of 6.61% of pay. In terms of dollars and the contribution procedure, this rate will be applied to payroll, employee payroll, during fiscal 18, and we estimate the dollar value of contributions to be about $9 million. The chart at the bottom of the page shows a comparison of contributions for this valuation versus the prior year. And you can see, looking at the second row from the bottom, that the contributions were 5.28% of pay versus 5.33%. Fairly consistent, but the recommendation is a contribution of 6.61%. So you may be wondering why that is. The current report reflects a number of changes, but it also reflects the implementation of the retirement system's funding policy. And the funding policy establishes the retirement system's funding objectives. And this was adopted by the board last year. I think at the time we were working on last year's report, it was still in draft form, so it's reflected for the first time in this report. Your funding policy has a provision that calls for a contribution minimum. And it becomes effective during times when you have what's called a funding surplus or a funding credit, which you currently have. So your policy calls for a minimum of normal cost contributions, which is the 6.61%. We think that in the near term that this will help to create some contribution stability, and that's due to phased recognition of investment losses, which we expect to occur over the next 3 years. We'll talk about more in a moment. A number of things happened between the last valuation and the current valuation, and that is described on page A-5 of your report. This report of the retirement system fully recognizes the 7.4% discount rate. This is consistent with the board's objective of ratcheting down that rate by probably 0.1% for the purpose of the current report, until ultimately you reach a level of 7%. So that's fully recognized here. And that by itself will, of course, raise our assessment of liabilities and raise the corresponding contributions. But during the year, you also had some favorable experience to offset the cost of lowering the discount rate. And that may seem counterintuitive in a year when capital markets were not rewarding investors, but you did have an investment gain during the year. And you also had some favorable experience with respect to COLA payments for retirees. Retirees received payments that were lower than the 2% maximum amount, which is our expectation each year. So to the extent that you're giving retirees lower cost of living adjustments than what's anticipated, it lowers our assessment of liabilities, which in turn lowers your contribution requirements. So for the purpose of the investment experience of the plan, let's take a look at page B-3 of your report. We'll look at B3 and B4. Page B3 is a financial statement for the retirement system during the 2015 and 2014 calendar years. These are the system's plan year. And you can see that a lot of information, contributions coming into the system of almost 16 million. And item C shows the investment income that was earned by the system in calendar year 15. The number in brackets represents the investment, an investment loss, and the positive numbers are gains. So overall, the investment income was negative. Our expectation for 2015 was that the fund would earn 7.5% net of expenses, which did not occur. You also have refunds of member contributions and benefit payments. So you started out the year with a market value of 656 plus million, and the income was lower than the expenditures, and the result was a decrease of about 17.9 million, leaving you with about 638, almost 639 million at the end of the year. When we do our actuarial calculations, we don't just use the market value of system assets. If we were to do that, it would introduce volatility into your contribution rates. You know, as capital markets tank, your contribution rate goes up if you use the market value of assets. During good times, your investment experience, when it's good, the impact it has on contributions is that they plummet. So we use a market-related or an actuarial value of assets. This helps to mitigate contribution volatility associated with the volatility in capital markets. And that's shown on the next page, B-4, and it helps to explain the statement that the investment experience during the year was actually pretty good. You see two columns, 2014 and 2015, and this page shows the development of the smoothed or actuarial value of assets. The items B and C show the market value at the beginning and the end of the year. You can see that it decreased during the year. The funding value at the beginning of the year is lower than the market value at the beginning of the year. That's due to the phased recognition of investment income. Whenever you have more investment gains in the pipes than you have losses, the funding value of assets will be deflated relative to market value. And then the opposite is true. When you have more investment losses in the pipes, the funding value of assets tends to be inflated relative to market. Item E shows the investment income that actually occurred. That's item E1. So this is the effect of the gains and losses that actually occurred on a market value basis, net of expenses. Item E2 is what we expected the fund to earn. 7.5% of the beginning of year funding value. We expected 46.6 million in investment income. But the fund only earned a negative $3.8 million. And so that difference, about $50.5 million, represents what we call an investment loss. And that gets phased in over a 4-year period. So for the current year, we're only recognizing 25% of that $50 million loss. In the prior years, and you can see this under item F, you had a relatively small investment loss in the prior year, so 2014. 2013, you had a very good year. You have almost a $12 million gain. And then in the year before that, you have a $4.6 million gain. So it's really the favorable investment experience from prior years that is resulting in the overall favorable investment experience. It's over 8% for the year. So to the extent that the investment experience is higher than what was anticipated, it generates experience gains. And those experience gains in this year help to offset the impact of lowering the discount rate. So the rate of return on a market value basis for our calculations about a negative 0.6%. what was recognized was a return of 8.12%. So overall, the investment experience was good for the current year. But what we expect to happen in the near term is that you have, and this is shown in item H, you have about $26 million in investment losses that you'll have to recognize over the next 3 years. So if you always hit your investment assumption in the next 3 years, you're looking at a negative $26 million in investment experience that you have to make up. So the impact of this by itself will be to erode the system's funding surplus. Once the surplus is eroded, your contributions go back up to the normal cost level. So your funding policy currently sets your contribution at 6.61%. If things always happen, according to plan, your funding surplus will erode and your contributions will naturally gravitate back up to 6.61%. So your funding policy will help to create some contribution stability in the near term. If you didn't have the policy, your contribution this year would drop back down to about 5.3%. Next year, you'll start recognizing those losses. Your contributions will creep up. Depending upon what happens in 2016, they could creep up quite a bit. So by setting the contribution level equal to the normal cost payments, it helps to create some stability in the contribution rates. And we think it's good for the fund.
So that's for the calculation to get to the 6.61 that would be effective July 1 of 18, right?
17.
I mean 17, I'm sorry, of 17, okay.
Right, correct.
On line E2 of that schedule,
Yes.
it indicates 7.5%. Is that true for 2015?
It is. The change in the discount rate was effective with this valuation, so it becomes prospective.
I see. Okay.
So it'll be true for 2016. And if the board makes a decision to ratchet that rate down again for the next valuation, that'll become effective for, the next year. Correct? Sure. On page A-4 of your report, we have a 20-year history of retirement system liabilities, assets, and what's called the system's funding percent or funding ratio. The funding ratio for the system overall is shown in the far right column. And a funded ratio of more than 100% indicates a surplus. It also indicates a very good financial position for the system. The system's objective should always be to reach and maintain a funded percent of 100% or more, ideally. But I have to say, for retirement systems overall, this is really very good. In the last 20 years, your funded percent has not dropped below 90%. There are plenty of retirement systems that would like to be in this position. So it's really an indication of the retirement board making the right decisions at the right time. I wish that all public plans were doing this. The very last row on the page shows the results for the current valuation. The total accrued liabilities and the assets, they're shown in the center of the page. About 633, almost 634 million in liabilities. These are past service liabilities. And you can see that the assets exceed that, at least as of the valuation date, 665 million. So that difference, about $31 million, represents the system's funding surplus. And you can see what it is in prior years. On page 5 of your report, I'm sorry, page B-5 of your report, we have a history of retirement system retirees and any beneficiaries. So you can see how your retiree population has grown over the past 20 years. This is pretty typical of what we see in public plans. You have the movement of baby boomers through the system. And you can see how pension payments have grown during that time period. So even though you have about 16 million in contributions coming in and 28 million in pension payments coming out, that's not a source of concern because the difference is being paid for by the use of investment income that has accumulated in the trust over the many years you've been around. And on page B-8 of your report, you can see corresponding information for the employees who are covered by this retirement system. It's a 21-year history. And we have active members shown in the second column from the far left. This is what actuaries call employee members of the system. And you can see that the population has been fairly stable with some growth in recent years. And you see the corresponding changes in payroll and the demographics, the average age and such. This is certainly a nice thing to see. In a lot of communities, we've noticed that the employee populations have shrunk really since about the year 2000, or in some cases after 2008. So it's nice to see that that has not been the case here in Oklahoma City. So I think overall a good year for the retirement system. And that concludes my prepared comments. Are there questions? Any other questions or comments from the board?
Louise, if we look at page A5 at the bottom there, it talks about the comparison, discusses comparison between the funded ratio on an actuarial basis and a market ratio. So the 101% that it shows on market would be if in each year we are recognizing the full gain or loss from investments and the changes in all the, how we performed compared to our assumptions in a given year, that if you just took the market value today, it's less than what our actuarial rate is, actuarial funded ratio is, but yet it's still 101%. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And I think that's the right way of looking at it. Even on a market value basis, you still have a surplus, although a modest surplus.
Right.
That's exactly the takeaway point.
We like modest surpluses a lot more than big deficits.
Yes. Yeah, modest because it's 1% higher than 100%, but it's still about $31 million. There'd be plenty of retirement systems that would like to switch places with you.
Yes. Other questions? Do we need approval?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for your attention.
I didn't think
Yes, we do.
Oh, we do need approval? We need approval of
You're
the,
approving the valuation.
or we're accepting the valuation or approving? I'm sorry, Jim?
This is just the presentation.
Oh, okay, we did it, I'm sorry.
Okay. So rolling to item number 6, then, ratify approvals. We have A, payroll for the month of June, and B, action of the Secretary and Administrator in modifying the application due to a change in the final compensation. We have 3 items there. Would you like to take those as a whole? Motion has been made. Do we have a second? Second's been made. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Motion passes. Item number 7, approve claims docket. Motion's been made and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Motion passes. Item 8, approval of the following applications for service retirement. We have 9 items, I believe. Motion's been made. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Motion passes. Item number 9, we have 2 items regarding receive report of death. Do we have a motion? Did we have a motion? Yes. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Item number 10, approval for following vested rights. Motion has been made. Do we have a second? Motion's been made and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Item 11, discuss and authorize. Let's take these 3 separately, please. Number A, sending attendees to the Oklahoma Public Funds Trustee Education Conference, September 28th through 30th in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Do we need to have specifics on that, on number and amount?
No, we just approve trustees going, and then if you'll just contact me if you would like to go, then I can get you registered to attend.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Interest determination policy. Who's going to speak on that? Renee?
This is the policy that we've discussed, I think, 3-4 times in previous meetings.
Right.
We have made all the changes that have been recommended by the other board members, and it is submitted for approval.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Item C, the budget for period July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2017. Motion's been made. Do we have a second? Motion's been made and second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Investment consultant report. Do we have an investment consultant report? We do. But no one to present.
Attached, you have the June 30 report that was submitted, and Jason will be here at the August meeting. He will have the 3 presentations for the emerging manager here. We also may have some discussions regarding our custodian search and actually revising our custodian agreement that we've been working with Jason and Patty on about negotiating fees with J.P. Morgan to carry on, and they may be discussing some of that at the August meeting also.
Thank you, Renee. I was going to ask for any other questions, but I'm not sure if we could answer them.
If you have questions, I can get those to Jason if you want to ask, or if you want
Okay.
to send them to me, I can get them to Jason.
Any questions to forward to Jason? Seeing none. Item 13, comments from board staff and/or citizens.
Renee, thank you for your work on that interest policy. I appreciate you working on that.
You're very wonderful. We want to get that in the minutes. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 10:33. Motion's been made. Do we have a second? Second's been made. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. The meeting is adjourned. Let's have a great day.